Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and children of all ages, we're back and it's that wonderful time of the year. Yes, my favorite color is Christmas lights. And when I put the shirt on, it kind of made me think of Christmas past. Long time ago, in a land far, far away, about 6 hours, I worked for a company. And when you work for a company, you end up making friends. You make associates, and there's always that one guy that just has to be a dick. Now, for sake of familiarity and keeping this simple, we're going to call Dick Dick. I had other names for him, but I do want this to be published, not marked X-rated. Now I can get along with just about anybody, within reason. I've been able to prove that time and time again. As long as you got a sense of humor and you take as good as you give, we're good. But there are things that are off limits. My family, my friends that have nothing to do with this, my children, and my children's friends. The only reason I'm bringing this up is because statute of limitations is run out. Now, at this point in time, I lived in the great state of Texas. And in the state of Texas, they would mail out these little postcards when a sexual predator moved into your neighborhood. Remember that. Now, Dick was being a dick. You know, if you want to screw with me, you want to pick on me. Man, I've been a fat guy most of my life. I can take it. May not like it, but I can take it. But you don't screw with my family. You don't screw with my children. Especially when you're making inappropriate comments about my teenage daughters. Dick, as we lovingly refer to him, was not really liked by most of the staff there, but he was kept around because he was a he could produce. He'd make money for the company. There was one time I called him every name in the book but a child of God and threatened to pig stick him. Now, if you're from South Arkansas, you know what that means. You're going to stick a knife right in his belly and run it up until it stops. I just knew I was about to be fired. It got to HR quickly. I walked in the office, sat down, shut the door. After the lady from HR had called for me, and I walked in, sat down. Yes, ma'am. Before you even start, it is probably true. He got my goat finally. I threatened to pig stick him. You know what pig sticking is. And I told him I was going to gill flirt him. And with one swipe of my knife, I was going to change him from a rooster to a hen. Write up what all I care about is I get to keep my job. Write me up. I'll sign it. I can't deny it. I did it. HR looked at me, leaned over the desk. Would it have been caught on camera? I said, yes, ma'am. Can you show me? So I pulled it back up. I had access to the video cameras, and I showed her. Next thing I know, she starts giggling and turns to me. Why didn't you stick him? I wanted to see somebody whoop his ass. This was at the point in time I realized this guy was not liked. Well, that sealed it. I quit playing nice with this guy. And a few months later, my daughters came up to work with me and spend a Saturday with me, and they were hanging around, working with Daddy on there. I want them to see what Daddy did. Well, in the process of saying that, this peckerhead made some comments. He made comments to even customers and his fellow employees that they all thought he was cool told him that was wrong. They all personally came to me later, told me they thought it was wrong. I said, don't worry. He'll get his. He'll get his. Now, with that being said, I was somewhat senior in the company. I had access to a lot of things. Most of it I didn't pay attention to. But I paid attention to one thing. I did go into our files and find out his name, first, middle, last name, date of birth, and where he lives. You see, I had gotten one of those pedophile postcards a while back. And guy was about 6-8 blocks from me. It was no big deal. Now they have level 1, level 2, level 3. Level 1, low risk. Level 2, medium risk. Level 3, high probability risk. They're a high risk. I don't remember what I got, but I do remember I scanned that postcard into my computer and I proceeded to make some alterations to it. I found a photo of him off his Facebook. I put it on that postcard. I put all his pertinent information on there. Do you know there's a place online you can go and buy a mailing list in particular areas that you want to target? They're only cost a few dollars. And if you have your own computer and printer, which most people do nowadays, you can print up postcards, little and nothing. You can in fact go online, get you a mailing account to where you can scan these cards and it'll be mailable and you can drop them off anywhere. Well, I might have done that. I might have sent one to every address within a mile of his house, classifying him with his picture, his pertinent information as a level 3 offender. He lived in a somewhat nice neighborhood. Wasn't cheap. Wasn't a hood. But when you get to those nice neighborhoods, you get some Karens and some busybodies. And considering this fella had kids of his own, and all his neighbors are getting these postcards, they all called the cops. Oh boy, happened to get picked up on Christmas Eve and spent a long holiday weekend in jail because, as far as they knew, they had paperwork that showed something that they were able to show to the cops that he was a level 3 offender out of another state and that he hadn't registered. But he had moved there. Cops in those kind of neighborhoods, they do what they're told by these fairly rich people. And he spent a holiday weekend in a county facility. Needless to say, come Monday morning, he was late for work. You come at me with a knife, I'm going to pull a gun. You come at me with a gun, I'm going to pull a bazooka. But you screw with my children, my family, and friends, I always go for the nuclear option. He came back with his head down, and anytime he'd start feeling himself, start to make comments that he shouldn't, I'd tell him maybe we need to call the cops and check your background for any sexual predator history, and he'd shut up real quick. I love nuclear options. The funny thing is, to this day, he has no idea who did it to him. Peace, love, and Merry Christmas. Teach people a good lesson. Go for the nuclear option. They don't screw with you twice.